Hi everyone, my name is Natasha Frakes. I'm the VP of Communications for Torq Resources. Thank you very much for being here. I don't know about you guys, but I'm very excited to be here. Over the last 15 months, Torq has acquired 3 projects in Chile. We've drilled one of those projects, a project that had never been drilled before, and in our last hole of the program, the lucky 13th hole, we made a discovery. So I will be making some forward-looking statements. Our strategy in acquiring our portfolio in Chile was to find parcels of land that were underexplored but on established mining belts, and that's exactly what we did. So our Margarita project, where we announced our discovery a couple weeks ago, is on the coastal Cordillera belt. Our Santa Cecilia project, which we've been saying has been our flagship, but Margarita has been starting to steal the spotlight since we made the discovery. It's located on the Maricunga belt. And our Andrea project, which I'm not really going to have a chance to get into much today, is sandwiched between the Pascua mine and the El Indio mine on the El Indio belt. Not an easy feat to acquire projects with minimal exploration on them when you're in a country like Chile, which is the top producing copper country in the world, but that's where our team comes in. So Sean Wallace and Ivan Bebic were our co-founders, and they have had exploration success in the past with 2 companies, Caden Resources and Keegan Resources. Our Chief Geological Officer, Michael Henriksen, he is formerly of Newmont. He was a structural geologist there, and so he really sets the tone for the level of technical work that we are doing at Torq. And I also need to mention our team in Chile. So we partnered up with this team in Chile prior to acquiring any of our projects, and we wouldn't have been able to access them without the help of this team led by Waldo Quadra. So they've made discoveries in Chile previously, including El Morro. They have the connections to the communities, to the government, and to the private owners that then open the door for us to be able to acquire the projects that we now have. Because of our track record of success of our management team, we have a very loyal shareholder base. We also have high insider ownership, so our share price has remained relatively stable even in these markets. We have about 84 million shares outstanding, and in March we raised about $5 million. So now to our Margarita project, which, to be honest, really took us by surprise. We did not know what we were going to find there. It had never been drilled before. When we caught back our discovery on our last hole of the program, 90 meters of 0.94% copper and 0.84 grams per ton gold, we were obviously thrilled, and now our main goal is to get back there as soon as possible to resume drilling and follow up on this. As I mentioned, it was the last hole of the program, and it's up in the northern part of the property. The theory behind Margarita was to try and find the copper sulfide source to the oxide mineralization that exists on the southwest portion of the property, which you see in the orange there. Since we've drilled this discovery hole, we've realized that it sits on a 900-meter geological trend that correlates with high magnetics and a hydrothermal alteration system. So we think that we have about 1 kilometer to work with that could potentially generate the same kind of result as what we saw in our discovery hole. So we want to get back there as soon as possible to resume drilling, which we're planning on doing next month. Here's a look at the cross section from the discovery hole. The intercept started about 50 meters below surface. There's excellent correlation between the gold and the copper, and it's structurally controlled. So as I mentioned, we're gonna get back there and try and expand on this. Here's a look at a photo from the property. I'll actually be heading there this weekend. I'm flying out to Santiago tonight. It's moderate terrain. It's very easy to access. From Santiago, you take a short flight to Copiapó, drive for about an hour, and you're there, so you can visit the project on a day trip from Santiago. Now to our Santa Cecilia project, which, as I mentioned, we thought this was going to be, well, it still may be our flagship project. We inherited discoveries with this project. So it's sitting on the Maricunga Belt. It is owned by a wealthy Chilean entrepreneur who scoured the belt, the Maricunga Belt, 30 plus years ago, and his properties now have become the Pascua Mine, the El Indio Mine, West Wall, and this was one of the last properties that he held onto. It took a couple years of negotiating for us to be able to secure the option agreement for this project, but now we have it. And one of the things that you'll want to note about it are the neighbors. So this is a look at the hydrothermal aster imagery from the project, but as you can see, right next to the Santa Cecilia property is the Caspiche deposit, and about 2 kilometers south is the Cerro Casale deposit. Together, those make up the Norte Abierto project, which is owned in a 50-50 joint venture between Newmont and VRIC. We think that there is the possibility that this Caspiche deposit actually extends onto our Santa Cecilia property. And between those two deposits, that's about 13 billion pounds of copper, 50 million ounces of gold. So our chief geological officer, when he went to our Santa Cecilia property, he stood on the top of the hill, he looked out, and he saw those deposits out there as well as other mines in eyesight, and he said it made him feel like he was back working for Newmont again, surrounded by the best of the best. So as I mentioned, there hasn't been too much work on this project. There was a major mining company that came in as an operator about 30 years ago, and they drilled 47 holes, mostly in the center of the property. And while they only scratched the surface of exploration at this project, the holes that they drilled were significant. So here's a closer look at some of the historical drilling on the hill in the center of the project that I mentioned. 0.58 grams per ton gold equivalent over 162 meters. 1 gram per ton gold equivalent over 22 meters. These are grades that work in this area, especially when you look at our neighbors. This is an oxide gold system. What the major mining company didn't do when they were here drilling in the late 80s was they did not drill any deeper holes to see if there was potentially a copper deposit at depth. So the wealthy Chilean mining entrepreneur that owned it, in 2012, after all these big copper deposits were being found in the area, like Caspiche and Cerro Casale, he said, well, I'm going to drill 2 holes myself and see if there's potentially copper beneath this. So he did. And what you can see now here is that one deep hole, out of the 2 holes he drilled, one of them hit 925 meters of 0.45% copper. That is not something that you see very often in this industry that has not been followed up on. So this is one of our high priority targets, if not the most high priority target on the project. The big purple blob you see is right after he drilled that hole in 2012, the private owner paid for it with his own money to do a geophysical survey over the project, and came up with this 2 kilometer by 1 kilometer by 1.5 kilometer geophysical anomaly that has a 1-to-1 correlation with porphyry mineralization. So that could potentially be a massive mineralized body that hasn't been properly followed up on. It's not the only target on the project, however. So on the side of that hill, the major mining company that was there in the 80s, they tunneled into it, which is what you're seeing here. And at the end of that tunnel, they hit a completely different high-grade system. So this is a high-grade gold and silver epithermal system. They hit grades like 19 grams per ton gold equivalent over 6 meters, including 58 grams per ton gold equivalent over 2 meters. After they did that, they drilled a couple holes to see if they could replicate that grade in the drill holes, and they were able to do it. 7 grams per ton gold equivalent over 20 meters, including 56 grams per ton over 2 meters. So this is another target that we definitely want to follow up on. The last target that I'm going to mention at the Santa Cecilia project is the Las Pircas and Pircas Norte targets. So these are on the eastern edge of the property, the closest to the Caspiche deposit that's owned by Newmont and VRIC. The same geophysical survey that was done on the main target on the project was also covered this area, and it's identified two big geophysical anomalies that have yet to be tested, and we think that there's the potential for completely new porphyry mineralization here. And that it could potentially extend over from that Caspice deposit that is only 1 kilometer away from this. So we have the Margarita project, which is a brand new discovery. We have the Santa Cecilia project, where we inherited historical discoveries. We'll follow up on drilling at Margarita starting next month. We'll follow up on the Santa Cecilia discoveries starting in the fall. And then we have the Andrea project, which we're cooking up in the background and we'll bring to the forefront when the time is right. So we've got a $50 million market cap. And over the next few months, we're going to be drilling as much as we possibly can to try and prove out these potential brand new major copper gold discoveries in Chile. Thank you very much.